Hello, welcome to Get Your Mind On. I'm Lori Stohs. We've spent the past few weeks talking about nonverbal communication. Today we're going to drill down into a few more areas. One is proximity, and two is posture. So when we think about proximity, you automatically think of space. Everyone needs a special distance for them to feel safe. So when you think about that in our world today, imagine 4 circles, with the outer circle being about public space. Public space is about 12 foot or more, where people have the opportunity to wander and have plenty of space around them in a public area. The second circle would be social space. So that social space is anywhere from about 4 to 12 feet, where you're in a social environment, where you're able to have conversations with people, but you don't have to yell and scream, and you can just move maybe a little bit closer to them to have a conversation. The next area is personal space. Personal space is really where you're having a good conversation with somebody, around that 4 foot area, where you can be able to have a quiet conversation and something private and not let people get, too close to you. And then finally, in that inner circle is that intimate space. That intimate space is the space where probably very few people get into. That's more of that, probably the person you're more intimate with, someone that you're very close to. You can have whispering. It's that kind of that up to 1.5 feet, right? It's very close, very intimate. So people have lots of different areas where they feel comfortable. And when we think about communication and that nonverbal piece, we really have to understand first our area of proximity, what we're comfortable with, and second, that other person's. You may be a close, intimate person, so you may have a tendency to draw into people because you don't need as much space. Where you might have someone else, or you might be someone who needs, you kind of always have in your mind an arm's distance around you. So being aware of what that space is for you. If you've ever noticed, you might have been in a conversation with someone and you're having a conversation, maybe you're walking towards them and then they walk back to you backwards, okay? Being aware of that just helps you understand the comfort level of that individual. And I did a role play the other day in a large group setting where we were talking about this. And it was interesting. Those people who were very comfortable when we asked them to go through this activity, those who were comfortable, of course, drew closer. And you could just watch those who were not so comfortable and needed more of that space just immediately step backwards. So just being aware of that, I think, will really create the better relationships that you need and understand where people are at. Again, we have to think about that when we do this doesn't have anything to do with us. Sometimes I think we feel like, oh, they're rejecting us, they're pushing us back. Remember, that's just that other person's comfort level in terms of how they're comfortable with you and what space that they may be in. The other thing is, over time, sometimes people feel more comfortable moving in, right? So as you create a closer relationship with an individual, you might have been out in there, maybe a personal space where you may create more intimate space as you become closer with them. Just depends on the individual. The next thing is posture. Posture is a very important part of nonverbal communication in terms of looking at an individual. First, many times people notice when someone walks into the room, the posture that they hold. Are they standing upright, shoulders back and very confident, or are you kind of coming in with your head down and kind of looking around with your shoulders curled in? That in itself, if you look at the picture of 2 individuals, one standing up confident and one standing up, with shoulders in and head down, that portrays a very different level of confidence. So first, in thinking about yourself, think about your level of posture when you walk into a room, when you're sitting at the table, when you're standing, those types of things. So let's talk about standing. If you're standing there, sometimes when you're having a conversation, you might turn into someone and turn your body slightly. Okay, some people feel very uncomfortable with a straight posture, like they're right from you. They don't feel comfortable with that front body on. So, turning sideways with turning that shoulder kind of alleviates maybe some of that power position and creates a little bit of warmth and a little bit of a personal connection for that person. The other thing is, if you notice somebody does that to you, they may do that also because they do want a little bit of alleviation of that power play. And that kind of gives them a way to turn and position themselves if they do want to exit. So there's a little bit of that body language when you're having conversations with people in terms of how they position their body towards you or how you position your body towards them. Another standing position you might see is someone who is hands beside their side, very rigid, okay? This person is totally uncomfortable. They're not comfortable, they're just standing there. So you might think about what that discomfort is and really maybe back up a little bit and open up a little bit to them because they're obviously not in a comfortable setting. We always talk about the arms folded and those types of things. Being careful that your arms aren't tight, so you're holding up against that person in terms of showing that you're closed, because we have this closed and we have this open position. The closed position, watch their other parts of their body language. I myself have to watch myself with this because I'm cold a lot, so I will have my arms crossed a lot. But I always am sure to have my eyes connected to them, a smile on my face. When you see those types of things, you can't instantly assume because somebody has their arms crossed that they're closed. Watch the rest of their body to see that. But standing, of course, with your arms less crossed, or maybe a little bit more relaxed, versus so tightly too close to your body, makes a lot of sense. So watch that as well. When we think about sitting at a meeting, maybe let's think about body language with posture that might occur there. Again, all types of chairs, all different types of meetings. Someone who is, sitting back and more open in their chair. Sometimes you see legs crossed and arms up. Okay, those people are very open, very willing and ready. That just because they're not sitting up at the table doesn't mean that they're not, engaged in the meeting. So just watching that body language. Those individuals who maybe sit in their chair upright, arms tight to their body, may not be certain. The other thing is people, when they touch their face and have their hand over their mouth, sometimes they may have something to say, but they don't want to say it. They're kind of, holding back, so they're being very reserved. So really looking at that body language in meetings, when you think about how are people responding, how are people acting, in addition to that eye contact we learned about, what is that body motion, and are they engaged in the body or the meeting or not? Because when you think about that eye contact with that body, again, some people who might be more closed like this with their leaning against a table, if their eyes are thinking, they might definitely be thinking about an idea. That would give you a cue to go, hey, what are you thinking about, right? So there's some ways that you can really watch that body language. The other thing is we talked a little bit before about the, tapping their hands or the kinesthetic way of needing to keep busy. So watching that as well. But when you think about yourself, again, think about what you're trying to portray and think about your body language, holding yourself upright, being confident, being open, right? Being open even at that meeting. Now you can step back and cross your legs. There's many types of things depending on how long that meeting is in terms of for comfort. The other thing is if it's socially acceptable in the meeting, sometimes if you feel yourself disengaging, it might be appropriate just to stand up, reposition yourself and come back down to sit at the table. So you kind of have to understand that environment and what's acceptable. So when we think about those types of things, it's really important. The other thing that you have to also be aware of, which we haven't talked about, is cultural differences. There's many cultural differences in terms of what's accepted in terms of body languages. So being aware of that, no matter where you are in our world today, that you maybe learn and understand about proximity, especially. There's a lot about space and a lot about that different varying eye contact, touch, those types of things with many cultures. So for positive charge this week, first think about your body language. What is your space? What's proximity comfortable for you? Second, think about your body language and observe yourself in a couple settings. One, in it may be a social setting. When you're standing, how is your body language? And two, in a meeting, how is your body language there? And three, if you're a manager or leader of someone, being able to read that body language this week and think about how can you maybe adjust or address something differently because of that body language style of somebody you're working with. So again, as we continue to think about communication is a lot more than words. 7% is words, and the rest is really all of those other things that we do with our eyes, or the space, the touch, the feel, that and that openness or closeness with our posture. So thanks for joining us today, and remember to get your mind on.